we have a lot of information on Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And we should start on the airplane. A week ago, Wednesday night, a plane that was coming back from Europe, from France to the United States, with Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, and the kids on board. And we now have information on what allegedly happened and what is in dispute. And that scenario is extremely important for how this whole thing is going to resolve. So let's start on what is alleged. What is alleged and what went into the Department of Children and Family Services in Los Angeles is this, that Brad and Angelina began arguing on the plane, and 15-year-old Maddox got in the middle of them, and somehow Brad struck Maddox, and that is the basis of the claim that somebody made anonymously to DCFS, and the reason that Angelina separated and ultimately filed for divorce from Brad Pitt. Now, there are things in contention here in terms of what may or may not have happened, and there's a conflict.
Well, I'll give you one of them, Harvey, just based on the story that you just told, is that whether or not Brad Pitt was drunk. Initially, the way we heard this story was that part of the reason that this happened was because Brad was intoxicated. But that's now in question, whether or not Brad had alcohol after this incident happened, before it happened, or while they were on the airplane, and that is being argued.
We are told that Angelina's position is that he was not drunk at the time this occurred, that it happened. I think both sides will agree that this happened early on in the flight. Now, she is saying that he was not intoxicated.
And
we are told,
and then got intoxicated after.
And got intoxicated afterwards. On his side, they are saying he was intoxicated and he had been drinking before they got on the airplane. So I think the subtext to all of this is that it's very clear from the stories we've put up based on what we know, Angelina Jolie does not want to pass this off as a problem with alcohol or something that was alcohol-induced.
The other scenario is that the argument was as simple as a father and son arguing the way that a 15-year-old boy argues with his dad about normal 15-year-old things.
Mike, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. The reason this is significant is that the initial story that went in was that it started as an argument between Angelina and Brad, and Maddox stepped in. There is a conflict about that because I think what you're saying is that Angelina and Brad were not arguing.
Right, and depending on who you are or who you're with or what team you're on, that makes a huge difference if Angelina is not involved in the argument at all.
So explain the Maddox thing.
So the Maddox part is that the other scenario is that Brad Pitt and Maddox are arguing about whatever it is that 15-year-old and their dad argue about.
And that Maddox had started saying things that pissed off Brad.
Right, and Brad Pitt's camp is acknowledging that Brad became very upset and lunged at Maddox. There was physical contact, but not in an abusive way.
And that Angelina jumped in the middle of them to kind of set, during. When she saw Brad go toward Maddox, the argument is, now again, these are two different sides telling a story, that she came in between them, and then the issue is, did Brad intentionally strike Maddox, or was there inadvertent contact?
So the two sides of the story are, Angelina gets in between Brad and Maddox, or is it Maddox getting in between Brad and Angelina?
That's
Those
right.
are the two sides.
Is the argument.
But the third thing is, was this, and this is probably the most important, was the contact he made with Maddox intentional or was it inadvertent?
Right. Well, and I would say, we should say, Harvey, when we first heard this story and we broke the divorce on TMZ.com, the way it was told was that he was drinking, marijuana and alcohol fueled anger issues that he had, which is that Angelina then wanted to protect the children. So the way that sounds is that Brad Pitt was either intoxicated or highly intoxicated and intentionally struck his child. If it's what you just described and it was unintentional, that makes a gigantic difference. Not only that, but it comes down to parenting, what disciplining your children and how much can you, and if he even just did get physical, but grabbed onto his son, pushed his son, spanked him, it doesn't matter. There is a lot of argument in this country about what is okay or not. Well, and it's a debate about that, not a debate about abuse.
I will give you what I believe will ultimately be the argument on Brad Pitt's side, which is that he was going to come at Maddox, maybe grab him by the shoulders and say, "What are you doing?"
Disciplining
She
his
got
child.
in between them, and he lost his balance. I mean, I'm just saying this is going to be the argument,
Right.
and that whatever happened, he made some kind of contact, but it wasn't an intentional
But it
hit.
wasn't
That's going to
intended,
be
right.
from his
Right.
side, and it
Yeah,
makes
exactly
a difference. And by the way, we also
totally
know
makes a difference.
we also know, speaking of that, there's just going to be a huge fight in this divorce. Brad Pitt, we are told, is solidly deciding to file for joint physical custody. It's something Angelina does not want him to have.
Right? She, in her documents when she filed the divorce, said she wanted sole physical custody, which was our first inclination that something went down here, which
Right.
now we know it did.
And think about what we just discussed, guys. The fact that both of them really have different ideas of parenting these children. It's very obvious. Either scenario talks about Angelina being looser on the children, Brad being a disciplinarian.
Which has always been the
This
case.
custody
Yeah.
battle, the line that was just drawn, I am told is going to take a long time to come to
Well,
an
you know,
agreement
but Mike,
because
you know why?
they very much differ in how they feel about parenting the kids.
Exactly. That if
And
they
that
get,
is troublesome with people with huge amounts of money and tons of kids.
And by the way, that problem is going to exist whether she gets sole physical custody or joint physical custody.
It's still going to be, right.
Because
absolutely.
she is conceding that he should have joint legal custody. Legal custody in the law means making decisions about the children, where they go to school, how they're disciplined, all of this stuff, which has always been the source of conflict. So no matter which way you cut it, they're going to have a dogfight in court, possibly in court, over the custody. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Whatever it is. And then once that gets decided, it looks like there will be ongoing issues in terms of how the kids are raised. So this is not going to be an easy situation.
Hey, it's Jake from Arkansas. I don't think the airplane argument is the reason for the divorce. I think there's more to that story, or more to the divorce than that story. I do feel like, though, that Angelina definitely jumped in between Brad and the son because based on her past, she kind of has a history of doing that to people.
When did that happen before?
Jennifer Aniston and Brad?
Jumping
geez.
between people.
Oh,
God.
okay, we were a little
thank you.
slow in the uptake there, but thank you.